Father bless, what's the difference with praying with your lips and praying with the nous? Are we allowed to pray in the nous? And is this different than prayer of the heart? Thank you, Chase. Well, praying with the lips is, pretty straightforward. Praying with the nous is noetically in your inner man, in your the inner voice that you have, deep within your mind, as it were, right? You have an inner voice. And so you're praying initially and without using the mouth, without pronouncing the words. And then eventually, when we're talking about the hesychists, when we're talking about the real advanced spiritual warriors, what we have is the descent of the nous into the heart and a continuous unceasing prayer. But that's not for where most of us are at. And that is a long spiritual struggle, usually, not always. And of course, they're keeping the commandments strictly, and they're fasting and all the rest. So that all is a package deal. Like you're not going to achieve, you're not going to cheat the Lord or cut corners on noetic prayer. And I'm going to arrive at prayer of the heart because I read a bunch of books and, I'm praying an hour a night. That's not going to happen. So we need to be very simple and humble about who we are, where we're at. And of course, we need a spiritual guide, and that spiritual guide is gonna see from a variety of things if we're able to go deeper in prayer, because it's totally impossible for somebody who lives a worldly life or a fleshly life or a slothful life to make serious progress in noetic prayer. It's very, very unlikely. I shouldn't say it's impossible. So the majority of what we're going to do if we're beginners is the prayer with the lips. One analogy that I've heard from an Athonite elder is that, not analogy, but like ratio. Let's say you are a beginner monk on Mount Athos and you have a prayer rule. It would be maybe something like this. I'm not saying it. Certainly it would be like this, but there's a possibility you'd have something like this. And a beginning monk, like a novice on Athos, he might do 100 to 150 prostrations, maybe more, 200, depends on him physically and spiritually. And then this is a beginner. And then he would pray, the prayer rule for an hour to 2 hours. And he would pray between 6 to 8,000, possibly the Jesus prayer. So what is that? That's 300 prayer. The prayer rope has 300. So if you do it 10 times, that's 3,000. I'm sorry, I said 6,000. I meant 3,000. 3,000 to 5,000. So the prayer rope would be, possibly for a beginner, he would do 7 times the 300. And then the first 3 he would do it with the sign of the cross. So 300 3 times with the sign of the cross, and then he would do 200 to 300 more without the sign of the cross, and then the last maybe 1 or 2 would be without speaking. So depending on, there's a variety of ways people parse this, right? So don't take it as like this is the rule. Okay, this is just one example. My point in all this is that it's a progressive thing. And even those who are on Mount Athos as monks, they're still praying with their lips. And eventually, of course, day in and day out, they're going to make progress, hopefully, and they're going to pray a little bit more noetically, in other words, with their nous. And then, they also will pray to the call on the Mother of God, especially on Mount Athos, which is her garden. And all the monks pray probably 1 to 2 prayer ropes, in other words, 300 prayer ropes out of the 7 or so that are not, or 8 that they're praying to Christ. So there's usually a ratio of 3 to 1, but not always. 3 Christ to 1 to the Most Holy Theotokos Savus. So anyway, that's just an example. So, we're beginners, most of us, right? And we're praying the Jesus prayer, maybe just 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I don't know, whatever it is. So we're going to do most of all those with the lips. And then we'll do a few without the lips, just in our minds, in noetically. And then the whole question of noetic prayer and prayer of the heart, that's that's beyond most of us. And it's over time, you need a spiritual guide and how that's going to work out. And it's going to become, as it were, the unceasing voice of God, calling upon God, Abba, Father, like we talked about tonight, within your heart. It goes into your heart, into your inner man. So you can, and there's theologians, for instance, Father John Romanides talks about how those who are advanced in the prayer, they pray at the same time they use their rational intellect to function. So people say, even on that 60 Minutes special, I remember the guy asked, are you praying right now? And he said, yeah, I'm praying right now. No, I don't know if he was, but that's possible. That's possible that you are functioning on a daily basis, doing all the things that you do, cleaning, whatever. And then at the same time, in your heart, in the depths of your soul, the prayer is going on. So that's advanced though. So anyway, I don't know if I answered your question. Hopefully I have. And that helps you a little bit to get a sense of things. But really what we need to focus on is to make sure we're keeping the commandments. We're making progress in faithfulness, in prayer and fasting. And along with that, little by little with a spiritual guide, we're making progress in the prayer, the Jesus prayer. And first and foremost, to keep our prayer rule, whatever that is that the spiritual father gave us, that is basic, right? So stay humble, stay meek, stay low to the ground, do the basics, and be patient. That's what's important for most of us.